In the late 18th century, in the rolling grasslands and river valleys of what is now KwaZulu-Natal, a child was born into hardship. Shaka, son of Senzingangkona of the Zulu and Nandi of the Langeni. His parents' relationship broke custom and brought stigma, and Shaka's early years were marked by insecurity, ridicule, and displacement. As Nandi sought refuge among different communities, Shaka learned endurance, observation, and controlled anger. This difficult beginning mattered because Zulu society valued lineage and acceptance, and Shaka grew up feeling both inside and outside the world he would later dominate. In his 20s, he entered the orbit of Dingiswayo, the powerful Mthethwa leader whose military system and political alliances shaped the region. Under Dingiswayo's command, Shaka proved himself as a disciplined fighter and sharp-minded organizer, skills that would soon transform a small clan into a kingdom feared across southern Africa. In 1816, Senzangakona died, and the balance of Zulu leadership shifted. Dingiswayo released Shaka from service and backed his claim to lead the Zulu, a community then small, perhaps fewer than 1,500 people, clustered along the white Umfolozi River. Shaka's rise was swift and uncompromising. He moved to secure authority, reward loyalty, and silence rivals, turning leadership into an instrument of command rather than negotiation. At first, his power still sat within the larger Mthethwan network, but regional politics were unstable, and violence between clans was escalating as competition for cattle, land, and prestige intensified. When Dingiswayo was killed not long after, the last restraint on Shaka's expansion vanished. Now the Zulu were no longer a minor client group, they became the core of a new military kingdom. Shaka's genius was not only fighting, it was organization, shaping people, discipline, and fear into a single engine that could move, strike, and absorb defeated communities into a growing state. Shaka's most famous transformation was military. Before him, many Nguni fights were brief clashes with throwing spears, cautious advances, and limited pursuit. Shaka redesigned warfare for decisive results. He popularized the short stabbing spear, an assegai meant for close combat, forcing opponents into contact where courage, endurance, and formation mattered. He strengthened the regimental system by age groups, housed in separate military kraals, each with distinct shield patterns and adornments. Training became relentless. Marching, sprinting, and coordinated movement were treated as skills as vital as bravery. The Zulu army, the Impi, became a disciplined machine that could travel far and fight repeatedly. Command also sharpened. Indunas used signals and strict hierarchy to control the tempo of battle. This was more than weapon choice. It was a new social structure built around military readiness. Young men's lives were organized through regiments, loyalty was enforced through shared identity, and success in war became the foundation of political power. In Shaka's hands, the army did not just defend the Zulu, it created them. Shaka paired new weapons with a signature battlefield system often described as the horns of the buffalo. The Impi was divided into groups, a powerful chest to engage and hold the enemy, 2 fast horns to sweep around the flanks, and a reserve, sometimes called the loins, kept back until the decisive moment. The design depended on speed, stamina, and timing. Encirclement cut off escape and shattered enemy cohesion, turning defeat into total collapse. But tactics alone did not build an empire. Shaka's policy was absorption. Conquered groups could be broken apart, their fighters redistributed into Zulu regiments, their young people integrated into Zulu society, their cattle and resources redirected to the center. Over time, this created a state larger than any single clan identity. Success produced momentum. Victory brought more soldiers. More soldiers enabled deeper raids. Deeper raids created more dependents and allies. The result was a rapid reordering of southeastern Africa. Yet the same system that built unity through force also spread fear, displacement, and cycles of retaliation, setting the stage for wider upheavals beyond the Zulu heartland. Shaka's early campaigns struck nearby clans, building a protective belt around Zulu territory and removing rivals who could threaten his base. Then, as his forces grew, he faced stronger opponents, most notably the Ndwandwe and the Kwabe. In struggles like these, intelligence, mobility, and psychological pressure mattered as much as sheer force. Reports of Shaka's cruelty exist in many sources, but historians debate the scale and details, and later storytelling often exaggerated extremes. What is less disputed is the outcome. The Zulu Kingdom expanded rapidly, and warfare intensified across the region. Villages could be abandoned, alliances reshaped overnight, and defeated groups scattered or absorbed. Shaka's headquarters, often associated with the royal crow known as Bulawayo in later accounts, became a center of authority where regiments assembled, tribute arrived, and decisions radiated outward. His power rested on keeping the army active and loyal, balancing reward and fear, and ensuring that no alternative leader could organize resistance. The landscape of southeastern Africa was changing, boundaries hardened, small clans disappeared, and new, larger political formations emerged in the shadow of the Zulu. Shaka's early campaigns struck nearby clans, building a protective belt around Zulu territory and removing rivals who could threaten his base. Then, as his forces grew, he faced stronger opponents, most notably the Ndwandwe and the Kwabe. In struggles like these, intelligence, mobility, and psychological pressure mattered as much as sheer force. Reports of Shaka's cruelty exist in many sources, but historians debate the scale and details, and later storytelling often exaggerated extremes. What is less disputed is the outcome. The Zulu Kingdom expanded rapidly, and warfare intensified across the region. Villages could be abandoned, alliances reshaped overnight, and defeated groups scattered or absorbed. Shaka's headquarters, often associated with the royal crow known as Bulawayo in later accounts, became a center of authority where regiments assembled, tribute arrived, and decisions radiated outward. His power rested on keeping the army active and loyal, balancing reward and fear, and ensuring that no alternative leader could organize resistance. The landscape of southeastern Africa was changing, boundaries hardened, small clans disappeared, and new, larger political formations emerged in the shadow of the Zulu. In 1824, Europeans from the Farewell Trading Company established a small trading post at Port Natal, today's Durban. Their arrival introduced new goods, new information channels, and a different kind of diplomacy. Shaka, curious and confident, allowed them to remain, purportedly believing Zulu society to be stronger and more advanced in its own way. A few traders learned isiZulu and later wrote accounts that became influential sources, though they were also outsiders with their own motives and misunderstandings. This contact did not immediately weaken Shaka's kingdom, it added another tool. Trade could bring metal, cloth, and novelty items that impressed or served the court. But it also brought surveillance. Europeans observed Shaka and carried stories outward, helping shape how the world would remember him. Meanwhile, Shaka continued to rule through regimental organization and political control. The Zulu Kingdom was now a regional power with a disciplined army and a growing network of incorporated peoples. The meeting at Port Natal was a quiet turning point, small in numbers, large in future consequences, because it connected the Zulu world to expanding global interests along the southern African coast. In 1827, Shaka's mother, Nandi, died, an event that struck at the emotional core of his life. Accounts describe a period of intense mourning and harsh policies that shocked even loyal followers. Because many details come from later observers and oral tradition, historians debate numbers and specifics, but they generally agree that Shaka's behavior became more extreme and unpredictable during this time. The kingdom's routines suffered. Food production and seasonal rhythms could be disrupted when fear spreads and leadership becomes unstable. For a military state, morale mattered. Warriors could accept hardship in war, but constant strain without relief eroded loyalty. Shaka's authority remained immense, yet the very system he built, tight discipline, centralized command, and personal power, also meant that if the ruler faltered, the whole structure trembled. Rivals and half-brothers watched closely, calculating survival. In many kingdoms, succession is the most dangerous moment, and Shaka's court was entering that danger, while the army was exhausted by repeated campaigns. The legend of Shaka often focuses on conquest, but this period reveals another truth. Empire building creates pressure that can turn inward, threatening the center as much as the frontier. By 1828, Shaka's close associates faced a dilemma. The king was still powerful, but confidence in his judgment was weakening. The impi was pushed hard, sent on distant raids, then demanded to move again, leaving little time for rest or recovery. In a regimental system, shared exhaustion can become shared rebellion. Two half-brothers, Dingane and Mwangana, became central to the plot against him, joined by a trusted figure within the court. In September 1828, Shaka was assassinated at his residence. The act was political, not random. Removing Shaka meant seizing control of the army and the state. After his death, the Zulu Kingdom did not vanish. Its institutions were too strong, but its direction shifted. The new leadership had to stabilize the realm, manage rival claimants, and repair relationships strained by years of relentless campaigning. Shaka's assassination illustrates how the greatest danger to a centralized warrior king can come from inside the circle he built. His personal authority created the empire, but it also created the conditions for conspiracy, because whoever controlled the center controlled everything. Shaka ruled from 1816 to 1828, and in just over a decade, he reshaped southeastern Africa. He took a small Zulu clan and forged a militarized kingdom built on regiments, discipline, and rapid movement. His tactical system, pinning the enemy with a chest while horns encircled, helped make Zulu attacks decisive, while his policy of incorporating defeated groups expanded manpower and bound new communities to the center. The wider turmoil, often called the Mfecane, cannot be reduced to one man, but Shaka's rise was a powerful force within a larger storm of drought, rivalry, and competition. Europeans at Port Natal encountered a kingdom confident in its own strength, even as outside interests began to gather along the coast. Shaka's later years showed the risks of personal rule. Mourning, pressure, and fear weakened trust, and he was assassinated in 1828 by insiders seeking control. Yet his legacy outlived him. The Zulu Kingdom remained a major power, and Shaka became a symbol, part historical leader, part legend, of how organization and strategy can remake a region.